Good afternoon. In a previous life, I was a director of special education in K-12 schools. So for 34 years, I spent a lot of time talking about students with disabilities. Unfortunately, I didn't spend as much time listening to students with disabilities. This semester, I had a treat to be able to work with Kathryn as she explored dyslexia. And you will find out in just a couple of minutes why she's so passionate about the topic and why we need to listen more to students with disabilities. It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Kathryn Stonecker.
Hello. Not only is the name of my project the Modern Classroom and how to teach your students with dyslexia, but so is my podcast. I'm going to start with why I chose dyslexia out of all specific learning disabilities out there. According to the Ohio Dyslexia Association, 1 in 5 students have dyslexia. I am 1 in 5. I struggled a lot in school, especially when it came to reading and writing and organizing my thoughts and ideas in words, and I thought I was alone for the longest time. I was diagnosed in 7th grade, and from there, I thrived. I've gotten the support that I needed, the help that I needed to succeed. And I still struggle from time to time, I'm not gonna lie. It's still hard. It's not the easiest thing in the world. But it gives me an opportunity to be real with people when I'm struggling and just say that this is hard and this is how I'm gonna get through it. I also took an opportunity for this project to get to know how my own brain works, since I work a little bit differently than other people, which was a really cool opportunity. Professionally, I chose dyslexia as an intervention specialist major and work with these kids. I want to know how they work. I need to know how to support them. There's a new Ohio dyslexia law. This requires all students to be screened from kindergarten to 3rd grade. All students receive Tier 1 instruction. This is a core phonics program that has to be approved by the state. Students that have been screened then can possibly be marked for at-risk for dyslexia, and they start to receive Tier 2 instruction, which is more intensive. The goal is to remediate these students and help them to be successful in the future. Professionally, overall, I need to know how to support my students. And one of the best ways for me to be able to do this is to know more about dyslexia. So what is dyslexia? Dyslexia is neurological in origin. This means that there's no cure, but there are a lot of supports out there. There are a lot of struggles that come with dyslexia, but the main ones include accurate or fluent word recognition. So this is seen when a student is doing a fluency reading out loud. And this comes with a struggle of decoding words or manipulating the sounds of words, sounds into words, and encoding words, which is identifying sounds for given letters. There's also a struggle with spelling, which again comes with identifying those sounds for given letters. These struggles are not due to cognitive abilities. Every student with dyslexia has the ability to achieve whatever they want to achieve. They just need help. Other struggles that can occur include reading comprehension and not getting the needed vocabulary and background knowledge because they're given lower level or easier texts that then miss these needed words to be able to be successful in the future. There also is struggles with organization because people with dyslexia are right-brained. When thinking about the right brain versus the left brain, when talking about reading, everyone starts reading using their right brain. There's a shift that happens over to the left. A person with dyslexia never makes this shift. With your right brain, you're making a lot of out there connections, and you don't even realize it, so then you write about it in your paper, and then someone asks you how you got there. Before we take a brain break, I'm going to tell you why we take a brain break. According to Bryce, breaks in lectures can lead to feedback. Specifically, when given a chance to think, pair, share, because you're able to hear what the rest of your people in the audience or in your lecture or whatever are thinking. What are their thoughts? Where are they falling on this idea? These breaks can increase retention, especially when placed in a spot for a good learning break to section up your learning. Good breaks are purposeful and increase metacognition, and it's important to go beyond just stating the facts when you're learning. How do you break it up? Bryce says for good breaks to be a surprise. It's important for students to want to learn and get to these points, but they don't know exactly when it's going to come. So it's time for your brain break. According to the International Dyslexia Association, 1 in 5 people are dyslexic. Does this surprise you? Why or why not? Take a moment to think, pair, share. About 30 seconds. All right, we can bring it on back in. First step in the project process was research on dyslexia. Because I struggle with it, I found out so many more things about it, its origin. Not only did I learn more about myself, but why different things occur and why it's different for each person that has dyslexia. I then wrote an initial outline for the podcast. It was not very well organized. I tried to put it into a script. Then I realized it wasn't organized. So I took a step backwards and I found more research on how to write a podcast and record a podcast. And that really helped me organize it. So how to properly write a podcast? You need to identify your audience, create an outline that works for you, note where you want vocal changes. For example, add emphasis, get excited here, maybe get quiet all of a sudden, take pauses. Where do you want these changes to be? Add personal experiences to make connections to others. How can people find a way to connect to your story? They don't have a face to work with, so you're still trying to make connections. And have attention getter. Get people to want to listen to your podcast instead of any other one. Struggles up to this point. They kind of come in 2 parts. One is related to having dyslexia. As I talked about earlier, I struggle with organizing my ideas. I go to really far off ideas, and I realized that I need to make sure that they're directly connected to what I'm working with. Almost that like little center main idea. I don't want to be out in left field. I want to be right at that main idea. And so it really helped me work on that and my organizational skills. This is a relatively new way for me to present material. And so I had to find a way to make it interesting. I didn't want to just stay the facts and move on because I wanted people to learn from it. And fitting everything into a reasonable time for a podcast, anyone that knows me knows that I like to talk. And can talk for a little too long sometimes, because I just want to share so much information. But you can also only keep people's attention for so long. And so then that led to making decisions into what to include and what's relevant, which goes right back to having dyslexia as well. And again, organizing those ideas. What is truly relevant to what's at hand, or what could fit into a different episode? Next is some results. At the end of the day, dyslexic students, especially in younger grades, are in your room as they might not have been identified yet, and they need your support. I want to leave you with this metaphor. Imagine swimming in the ocean. when you're just rolling through those few little light waves and everything, you have the lifeguard there. You shouldn't be too worried. You might even be floating with some sort of flotation device to help you through. But if the supports are taken away, lifeguard's not there, you're no longer floating, a big wave can come in and take you out into the middle of the ocean. As a student, I experienced the middle of the ocean, and I can tell you that the middle of the ocean is rough and scary. So from there, I moved on to my next podcast. I originally was gonna move on to talk about phonics, as that's something that I struggled with and wanted teachers to know about. But thanks to the new Ohio Dyslexia law and the requirement of phonics programs, I don't need to educate teachers on what program to use best, as they're now required to use the best ones. So my professor looked at me and asked, "What can you do that not many others can?" And I looked at her, and I paused for a second. And I really thought about this. Like, I think it was more than just a second, it was closer to like 5 minutes that I just stared at her. I was like, oh, I have dyslexia. I can talk about my experiences in school and what I want teachers to know. And not only can I talk about my experiences, but I know others with dyslexia, and I can share their experiences to get multiple different ideas and standpoints to bring back. Well, with interviews comes a new way to write a podcast. So then I went back to my research and looked up online how to interview. Part 2. And from there, organized my script, and after I conducted research, I found the best ways to help students with the struggles that they had. Some of them connected to what they choose to do and others didn't. But that's okay, they found what works for them to succeed. For anyone that would like to find the podcast, here is the QR code. Episode 2 is now up as of 1 p.m. today. So please feel free. Thank you.
I am surprised sometimes when students are presenting in my class, sometimes they'll say, I have dyslexia. And for some reason, I guess, I don't know, it surprises me because I've been reading their writing and I didn't notice any differences. And so sometimes I'm afraid that there are students in my class at the college level who are invisible to me, who may be struggling with things that I'm not aware of. So is there any advice you have for college professors, giving that sometimes we don't know that there are students in our class who might have different experience?
I think my best advice is to continue to not only hear their experiences if they do offer that, but to look up different ways. Like, just these two alone aren't going to tell you everything under the sun. There's so much more research out there on how to support students at different levels. And especially at the college level, it's up to the student kind of knows what's best for them and what fits for them, and to advocate for their needs. And I think the biggest thing at the college level is really just advocating for their needs and support, and being willing to be there to listen, and not necessarily that they have to say, I have dyslexia, so I need this, but hey, I really struggle in this area. Can you help me with whatever that is? If that needs a little bit extra help in writing, if that needs a little bit extra help in reading, trying to find an audio book instead of an actual textbook, anything along those lines, I think is my best suggestion for that. Yes.
I would like to just say thank you. I am 1 in 5 as well. And this is something that wasn't, these conversations, these resources were not available when I was coming up the pipeline, and that's not that long ago. And so I just wanted to say thank you for doing the research, thank you for moving forward with the podcast, because we've got 2 things. We need to better support, but we also need to continue to remove the stigma. So that's it.
So Kathryn, I want to thank you for 2 things. One, I didn't know that 1 in 5, when we had our break and you gave us the homework to talk a little bit, I didn't know it was that high. I mean, I said to my colleagues over here, that's a way higher 1 out of 5 number than I would have understood. So that's something you gave to me and maybe to others here. But what really struck me by your presentation was the fact that having Dr. Henry be your learning partner, when she said, essentially, after 34 years of being in this teaching space, talking about and doing and working and trying to help students, what I learned from this experience with you is to listen and learn more. That's an incredible gift. So thank you.